Chuck Holton here. Hope you had a good weekend. Our topic for tonight, there was a Jewish, I guess he's a tech leader and a commentator named Hillel Fuld. And I don't know if you've heard of him before, but he is well known because he predicted October 7th, on the 5th of October, 2023. He posted on his Facebook that something very big was about to happen in Israel. And he says, look, I'm not a prophet, I could just feel it. And now across the United States, Europe, and Australia, we're seeing something very dark that's rising. And Hillel Fuld posted a long post on his Facebook. I'm going to paraphrase it for you. But in his post, he talks about how he believes that something even bigger is about to happen to Jews somewhere in the world. Maybe not in Israel, but somewhere in the world, something on the scale of 10-7 is about to happen. Now, let's talk about anti-Semitism rising all across the globe. I'm going to show you this graph here, and this is astounding. This shows just 7 countries. They call it the J7 here, and that includes Argentina, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, the UK, and the United States. And the number of attacks year over year has been rising in every country except the UK, which in the last year has gone down, but already was way up at the beginning of the war. So if you look at this, we're seeing now that if you just aggregate all of these countries, the number of anti-Semitic incidents reported in these 7 countries has gone from a total in 2021 of 9,767, which is egregious already, right? I mean, that's terrible. That's profane. To 9,844 in 2022 to 21,620 in 2023 after the war started. So more than doubled in those 7 countries. And 2024 is looking to be worse yet when all the numbers are counted. And you look here at the red line in this graph, that's the United States. We've gone from a low of 2,717 attacks in 2021 to 9,354, almost as many attacks in the United States in 2024 as we saw in all 7 of these countries put together in 2021. So this is the kind of data that Hillel Fuld is looking at to make his prediction. Now, I'm just going to read you the most salient points that I pulled out of that post to give you a taste. He says, this is a quote now, "I'm going to make a prediction right now. On October 5th, 2023, I predicted that something big was about to happen and Israel would be at the center of it. Now I want to make another prediction. It's a terrible one. Anti-Semitism has reached a point of no return. Hundreds of thousands of Jew haters are marching through Western streets, disguising themselves as human rights activists. Mass propaganda across social and legacy media is convincing millions that Jews are the new Nazis. Jews are being assaulted on the streets of New York, London, LA, Sydney, Montreal. I don't care what anyone says. This is Germany, 1935 level anti-Semitism, and it's getting worse by the day. So far, that's not a prediction. That's just reality. Here's my prediction. A very large-scale attack on Jews is about to happen. Not harassment, not graffiti. I'm talking about a well-coordinated terrorist attack on a major Jewish location where Jews gather in large numbers. I think it'll happen in less than a month. It won't be an isolated event. It'll open the gates of hell for Jews outside Israel. Jewish homes will be marked, businesses shut down, professionals fired. Anti-Semitism will become institutionalized. After this, Jews will no longer be able to leave their homes safely. Some will deny the danger. They will learn the hard way. This isn't paranoia. There are now millions of people who believe Jews are the problem and who want to see a Holocaust 2.0. All I can say, look around, pay attention, and pray. God, I hope I'm wrong." So that's just a paraphrase of his statement. Now, I'm not going to try to make a case that he's right necessarily. I'm going to let you do that. You go read his post and you decide what you think about the risk that we're looking at in the near term. However, I'm going to ask you to just go through with me a number of attacks that we've seen already. These attacks are nothing new. The shift that we're seeing now is a shift to specifically targeting Jewish people, events, Any place there's anybody that might be Israeli, and even places where there aren't Israelis, but you have a whole bunch of people that are just mad about it, you're seeing lots of mayhem and chaos because of this. Now, I'm going to show you some of these protests. It's easy to find video of protests, pro-Palestinian protests, just from the last 4 days all over the globe. And so I just aggregated some of them here. We're going to start in Greece. Take a listen to this, and then I'll tamp down the audio and we'll talk about it some more while it continues to play. So I'm going to make myself a little smaller here. I'm going to turn the screeching memes down a little bit so we can talk over it. But there's a cruise ship in the background. You've got all these people that are marching to try to stop them from coming ashore in Greece. Now, the thing that drives me crazy about this is that, so if you're mad at something the government of the United States is doing, and you are not an American, but you happen to come upon an American or two who are visiting your land, it would be foolish to assume that any American you met agrees with whatever the government. Now, this one is in Sydney, Australia, a couple days ago. I did some research and found out that in Sydney, Australia, there are maybe 6 or 7% of the population are Muslim. The vast majority of people in Australia consider themselves Christians. So it would look like the Muslims are a distinct minority. However, if you filter those people who claim to be Christian by their church attendance and try to separate out what I would call devout Christians who actually go to church every Sunday from those who are culturally Christian, who I'm Christian because my grandmother was Christian or whatever, you're actually almost at parity now between Muslims and true believers, true devout Christians. If you look at the United Kingdom, it's actually worse. There are far more devout Muslims in England than there are devout Christians. And it's even worse than that in France. People in France, it's funny because about 90% of people in France say that they're Catholic. Oh yeah, I'm Catholic. But when asked about their church attendance or involvement in religious things other than on holidays or something like that, it actually drops to almost nothing. It's very low. Only 4% of French people who claim to be Christian are actually involved in a local church. 4%. So Muslims, on the other hand, are vastly more faithful in their adherence to their religion. And so I guess when you look at those numbers, you can understand that they're having these massive protests and Nakba Day. They're celebrating Nakba Day in Melbourne, Australia, in places like that. Nakba Day is the day that the Palestinians observe, I guess, commemorating the day that they were driven out of their homes in 1948. It might surprise you that they're celebrating Nakba Day in Australia, but they are. And so I guess it's understandable that you're seeing these massive protests and that especially the Western world, the United States and Western Europe, are becoming less and less safe for Israelis, for Jews. I saw a documentary, oh gosh, it must have been 10 years ago now, maybe more, maybe 15 years ago, that talked about how the demographic shift was happening so fast in Europe. Europeans not having babies, not even getting married, and bringing in lots and lots of Muslim immigrants who are having babies, lots and lots of babies. And the documentary 15 years ago said, at this rate, in 25 years, Western Europe will be a Muslim majority nation. So they got 10 years to go. I don't know if they'll make it to being a majority, but they certainly don't need to get to be a majority to actually have serious impact on the culture, on the politics, and the policy of those countries. So when you see Keir Starmer saying that they're going to recognize Palestine as a state and literally watch him hand a prize to Hamas. Watch him just reward Hamas for what they did on October 7th by calling for a Palestinian state. One of the reasons why Keir Starmer is doing that is because he's a politician. He knows that Muslims vote, and he's got a lot of Muslims in his country. Same thing with Emmanuel Macron. I'm not saying that all Muslims are extremists, all Muslims are even anti-Semitic. The crazy thing is the world is turning on its head, that now the Arab League is calling for Hamas to disband and give up their arms and go away so that the war can end. Meanwhile, in Western Europe, you've got hundreds of thousands of people marching in the streets and attacking Jews. So it's almost like there are Muslim majority countries like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, UAE, countries like that, who are less anti-Semitic than France and the UK and Australia. That's insane, people. I want to address the real outrage, especially in Israel right now, over Hamas releasing photographs and videos of two of the living hostages. Both of them look like they're dying of hunger. They probably weigh 100 pounds. One of them was in a tunnel crying, who was made to dig his own grave on camera. I don't want to show the images of that because it sickens me. But you get the point. People in Israel are absolutely livid over these images being released because they actually show the Hamas captor feeding that guy as he's digging his own grave. And all his arm come into the frame, but his arm is plump and chubby. And meanwhile, this hostage is being starved to death. And Hamas, this is their new tactic now. They are saying, essentially, we are going to starve all your hostages to death if you don't end the war, leave the Gaza Strip, allow us to remain in power, and give us 1,000 truckloads of aid every day. Now, I did the math. Each truckload of aid can carry about 55,000 meals. So if you wanted to feed everybody really well in the Gaza Strip, 120 truckloads a day would give everybody 3 meals a day and 3 good meals a day. Okay, that'd be 120 truckloads a day. Hamas is saying they want almost 10 times that to go into the Gaza Strip. We talked about this on a live the other night about how Israel's kind of, maybe we ought to do it and just put so much aid in the Strip. Nobody could ever say that they're being starved in the Strip. That'd be impossible. They'd be drowning in food, if anything. But Hamas is now saying, yeah, none of that food is going to get to your hostages until you agree to end the war. And so they've found like a pressure point, a pain point for the Israeli people. Of course, the mainstream media, the New York Times, ran with the story that the kids were all starving in Gaza, and it used a fake photograph of a kid with muscular dystrophy saying that he was starving to death. No, he has a muscle wasting disease. And the New York Times went with that, let it run for a couple weeks, and then put out a little retraction on a different X account than its main one, saying, oh, that photograph wasn't actually correct. So the New York Times has not posted the photo of this hostage starving to death. The mainstream media is not running with that story at all. They're still running with stories about people starving to death in Gaza. Now, plenty of food is going into Gaza right now. Plenty. People in Gaza are not starving. More and more videos are coming out that show people on camera who are overweight, if not obese. So people are not starving in Gaza, but the media is still running with that story because it got a lot of traction. So Israel is doing what it can to try to counter that. And I want to play Gideon Saar's some excerpts from his speech he gave. Just listen to what he has to say. It's very good stuff.
Hamas and Islamic Jihad are using the starvation and torture of hostages as part of a deliberate and well-planned sadistic propaganda campaign. These organizations also planned the starvation campaign of lies together. The amount of aid entering proves that is a fake propaganda campaign. We see the dire condition of our starved hostages, yet they still have not seen representatives of the Red Cross. Terror states and organizations kidnap civilians in order to ensure their own survival and interests. Innocent civilians are inhumanely used as tools by terrorists to achieve their goals. In the case of Hamas, to force upon us their conditions, remaining in power in Gaza. Unbalanced and twisted anti-Israeli agenda of a huge part of the international media has once again been exposed. Just as there's no acknowledgement of Israel's humanitarian efforts in Gaza Strip, and Israel is doing a lot, the horrible images of the hostages were painfully missing from the front pages of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and most of the global media. It is shameful. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of all the hostages. The steps taken by countries like France, the UK, Canada, and others are a pure prize for terror, a huge gift for Hamas. These countries must understand the consequences of their actions. I warned on this very stage, some of you were here, that recognizing a virtual Palestinian state will lead to the assassination of the chances to reach a hostage deal and the ceasefire.
Okay, so that was Gideon Sarr, and making some very powerful points there that, again, the mainstream media is about to, I don't know if we ought to start calling them just a fully owned subsidiary of Hamas, but they are about as dependable. You can depend on them to report whatever they can that is anti-Israel. But if there's anything positive toward Israel, they won't report it. The AP is one of the worst. If I go look on the AP's website, they will not show anything pro-Israel. Anything Israel does good, they won't show it. When I went into Gaza myself last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, the AP had somebody there and they filmed it and they put it up on the AP. But the headline read, the IDF shows what it claims is aid inside Gaza. We were there. We were in Gaza. We were looking at the aid. It's not Israel claiming it's aid. No, it's aid. It's actually there. It's ridiculous.